My kidney wrote a secret diary about me. It sounds insane, I know, but it's the truth. My kidney, of all things, has been writing a secret diary, and it's all about me. At first, I didn't believe it. I mean, how could I? But one day, I found it just lying around on my bed. At first, I thought someone was playing a joke, but when I flipped through the pages and saw what was written inside, my stomach dropped. The things my kidney said about me, about my habits, were shocking. It was bashing me, complaining that I wasn't taking care of it properly. It detailed how I was eating all the wrong foods, drinking things I shouldn't, and doing activities that were putting unnecessary strain on it. I thought I was living my life just fine, but according to my kidney, I was slowly killing it. I got angry. No, I got furious. How dare my kidney, this asterisk organ asterisk, criticize asterisk me asterisk? I'm the one in charge, not it. So, out of spite, I did the only thing I could think of. I started doing even more things to damage it. I ate more junk food, drank more sodas, stayed up late, and barely drank water. Who does my kidney think it is anyway? It's just a piece of me, not my boss. If it thought it could scare me into changing my ways, it had another thing coming. It's the craziest, most unexpected thing that's ever happened to me, and trust me, the story takes some wild turns. What would you do if your body started talking back? Let me know in the comments. And if you're ready for more mind-blowing stories like this one, don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications. You're not going to want to miss what happens next. But then, a few days later, I found another entry in the diary. This time, the words were harsher, angrier. My kidney was practically begging me to stop what I was doing. It was saying things like, "You don't care about me at all," and "You're making me suffer on purpose." It was trashing me, asterisk really asterisk laying into me this time. It almost sounded desperate. I ignored it. Why should I care what my kidney thinks? I figured if it hated me so much, I'd show it just how little I cared. So I kept doing the things that made it suffer. But then something strange happened. I found a second diary. This one wasn't from my kidney. It was from my heart. My heart had started keeping its own secret diary, and it had a asterisk lot asterisk to say. Apparently, I wasn't exercising enough, wasn't eating enough heart-healthy foods. It complained about the way I treated my body, saying I was reckless, unhealthy, and on a path to destruction. My asterisk heart asterisk was trash-talking me, telling me I was irresponsible, that I was shortening my life. The nerve of it! The asterisk audacity asterisk. At that point, I was furious. I wanted to stab my heart, to tear it out for betraying me like that. How dare it accuse me of being unhealthy? How dare it judge me? Instead, I lashed out in the only way I knew how. I kept ignoring my health. I stopped exercising altogether and indulged in foods I knew weren't good for me. Who does my heart think it is? I am the ruler of my body, not my organs. I make the decisions. But the diaries didn't stop. My heart wrote another entry, beating faster with every word. It kept on scolding me, writing more and more terrible things about how I was ruining myself. Then, not long after, my stomach chimed in. Asterisk. It asterisk had started writing a diary too, complaining that I always filled it with garbage. It ranted about how I never gave it enough fiber and how it hated being surrounded by too much fat. My stomach, of all things, had the nerve to complain, and it didn't stop there. My joints, yes, even asterisk my joints, wrote a diary saying how I was putting too much weight on them. They moaned about the extra strain, how my size was making it harder for them to function properly. I couldn't believe what I was reading. Every single part of me was turning against me, writing these hateful, critical things. How asterisk dare asterisk they? How dare they say such horrible things about me? Asterisk to asterisk me. These organs, these parts of asterisk me asterisk, acting like they had any authority. The more I read, the angrier I became. They were ganging up on me, conspiring against me, trying to make me feel like I was the problem. But I wasn't going to let them win. Then it got worse. My brain. Even asterisk, my brain asterisk wrote a diary. It said I wasn't taking care of it, that I wasn't sleeping enough, that I was letting myself spiral into depression. It went on about how I was damaging my mental health, how I wasn't giving it what it needed to function properly. That was the last straw. My asterisk own brain asterisk? The thing that makes me asterisk was telling me I was failing. I couldn't handle it anymore. In a fit of rage, I decided I would take my revenge. If my organs wanted to turn on me, I would turn on them. I would make them suffer in the worst way possible. I was so angry, so filled with pride and spite, that I made a plan. If my body hated me so much, I would set it on fire. I would show them all. Let's see how they feel then. Let's see what my organs have to say when they're nothing but ashes. The moment I lit the match, everything slowed down. My hand hovered over the flame, trembling. In the back of my mind, there was a voice screaming at me to stop, but I was too consumed by anger, by the overwhelming need to show my body who was in control. It wasn't just about the diaries anymore. It was about proving a point, about silencing those inner voices that had been tormenting me for weeks. But then, as I brought the flame closer, something happened. My chest tightened, like my heart was squeezing itself, warning me. It wasn't painful, but it was enough to make me pause. I stood there for what felt like hours, the heat of the match flickering in my hand, my mind racing. The thought of actually going through with it, of destroying myself to get back at my organs, suddenly felt hollow, absurd even. That's when I noticed it. Another diary, this one I had missed before, was sitting on the table. It wasn't from my kidney or my heart or my stomach. It was from my lungs. The pages were neat, written in a calm, measured tone, almost like it was trying to reason with me. My lungs were begging me not to do it. They talked about how they'd been quietly keeping me alive all these years, working hard to take in oxygen, keeping me going, even when I didn't treat them well. They reminded me of the times I'd breathed in smoke, polluted air, and still, they carried on without complaint. But the thing that hit me the hardest was how my lungs talked about wanting to keep going, how they still had life in them, even after everything I'd put them through. They didn't blame me. They weren't angry or bitter. They just wanted me to understand, to see them not as my enemies, but as partners in keeping me alive. I sank to the floor, the match burning out in my hand. I felt a flood of emotions, guilt, shame, and the crushing weight of everything I'd been ignoring. These organs weren't conspiring against me. They were crying out for help. They weren't my enemies. They were just trying to survive, and in my anger, I had completely missed the point. I sat there for a long time, staring at the lung diary, my mind reeling. How had it come to this? How had I let myself spiral so far that I'd actually considered setting my own body on fire? I was exhausted, both mentally and physically. The diaries, these strange metaphorical messages from my body, weren't there to attack me. They were a desperate plea for change, for me to stop treating my body like an afterthought. As I sat there, something inside me shifted. For the first time in what felt like forever, I realized that I wasn't just angry. I was scared. Scared of losing control, of my own self-destruction, of being consumed by all the terrible habits I had allowed to take over. But now, in the quiet of that room, it all came crashing down. I had to face the truth. My body was breaking down, and the only one who could stop it from falling apart completely was me. In the days that followed, I began picking up the pieces. I went back to those diaries, reading each one carefully, really trying to understand what my organs were telling me. My kidneys' complaints about dehydration and poor diet were valid. My heart's concerns about lack of exercise hit me harder than I expected. My stomach, joints, even my brain had been sending me signals all along. I had just been too stubborn to listen. I joined a support group, not just the one I had originally been a part of, but a new one focused on mental health and self-care. Slowly, I began to make changes. Small ones at first, drinking more water, going for short walks, eating a little better. It wasn't easy. In fact, some days, it felt like I was fighting against myself. But the more I listened to my body, the clearer it became that this wasn't about control or revenge. This was about survival. It was strange, reading those diaries again with fresh eyes. What I had once seen as criticism now felt like encouragement. My organs weren't trying to tear me down. They were urging me to do better, to take care of the one body I have. They were pleading with me to give them a chance to keep me alive. Weeks turned into months, and slowly, I started to feel better. My energy levels improved, my mood lifted, and those angry, destructive thoughts began to fade. The strange thing? the diaries stopped appearing. It was as if my body no longer needed to scream at me for attention. We were working together now, in sync, and I could feel the difference. Looking back, I can't believe how close I came to losing everything, to letting my anger and pride destroy me. But in the end, it wasn't about punishment or control. It was about learning to respect my body, to care for it in the way it had always cared for me. My kidney, my heart, my lungs, they weren't enemies. They were my allies, my lifeline, and together, we had found a way to move forward. As for the group that had started the exercise in the first place, they reached out to me again after hearing about the fire incident. I explained everything to them, from the diaries to the breaking point I had reached. They were shocked, of course, but also supportive. They told me that the exercise was meant to help people develop a better relationship with their bodies, not to push them to the brink like it had with me. And maybe that's the lesson in all of this. Sometimes we need to listen to the messages our bodies are sending us, even if they're hard to hear, even if they come in the form of strange metaphorical diaries. Because at the end of the day, it's not about fighting our bodies, it's about learning to live with them. Months have passed since I found that last diary from my lungs, and my life has shifted in ways I couldn't have imagined. It's strange how something as bizarre as discovering metaphorical diaries written by my organs could completely upend everything I thought I knew about myself. But that's exactly what happened. And as surreal as it still feels, I can honestly say it saved me from spiraling further down a path of destruction. The first few weeks were the hardest. After I threw away the match and decided not to burn myself, I realized that I couldn't keep doing what I had been doing. I was filled with anger, sure, but beneath all of that was fear. Fear of my own body failing me, fear of losing control over my health, fear of what would happen if I didn't change. I had to face it, no matter how much I wanted to resist. But that didn't mean the journey was going to be easy. The mornings were the worst. I used to wake up feeling sluggish, like there was a lead weight tied to my chest, but now it was something else. It was guilt. I would stare at the ceiling for what felt like hours, wondering how I had let things get this far. The diaries kept playing over and over in my head. My kidneys' accusations about dehydration, my heart's warnings about my reckless lifestyle, and my stomach's complaints about my diet. And then, of course, my brain, the one that had screamed at me the loudest, telling me I wasn't taking care of it, that I was too wrapped up in my own self-destruction to see the damage I was doing. The shame weighed me down, but I knew I had to do something about it. So I started small. It wasn't like I woke up one day and magically became the perfect version of myself. No, I began with the basics. I started drinking water. It sounds ridiculous, but the truth is, I had barely been drinking water at all before. I lived on caffeine, soda, and energy drinks, barely giving my body what it needed to function. I would feel that familiar heaviness in my chest as I downed another can of soda. But this time, instead of brushing it off, I poured myself a glass of water instead. It wasn't a dramatic moment. It was just one small choice. But I think that's what it takes. Small choices, one after another. It didn't stop there. The next thing I tackled was my food. I hadn't realized just how much junk I had been consuming until I really took a hard look at my diet. Fast food, greasy snacks, sugary drinks. It had become a way of life for me. And my stomach's diary had made that clear. So I started cooking more. At first, I had no idea what I was doing, but I began experimenting with simple meals, grilled chicken, salads, even soups. I wasn't perfect at it, and sometimes I still craved the comfort of fast food. But every time I chose to cook, I could feel the difference. I could feel my body thanking me. As I made these changes, I could feel my organs quieting down. The metaphorical diaries stopped appearing, as if they didn't need to scream at me anymore. The constant criticism, the desperate pleas, they faded. And in their place, there was a strange kind of peace. My body wasn't fighting me anymore. We were working together, like we should have been all along. But it wasn't just physical changes that came. The emotional toll of everything I had been through was still heavy on my mind. I started therapy, something I had avoided for years. I thought I could handle everything on my own, but after everything that had happened, I knew I needed help. Talking to someone about the diaries, about my health, about the rage that had consumed me, it was freeing. My therapist didn't laugh when I told her about the metaphorical diaries. Instead, she listened carefully, nodding, and said that sometimes our minds create symbols to help us confront difficult truths. For me, those diaries were my body's way of forcing me to pay attention. They were a manifestation of everything I had ignored for so long. As therapy continued, I began to understand why I had let myself fall so far. It wasn't just about laziness or neglect. It was deeper than that. There were things I had been running from for years: old wounds, unresolved trauma, feelings of inadequacy that I had tried to bury. My health was just another casualty of my avoidance. By not dealing with the real issues, I had let everything else slip away. Through all of this, I learned to forgive myself. That was one of the hardest parts. It's easy to hold on to guilt, to beat yourself up for the mistakes you've made. But I realized that beating myself up wasn't going to help anyone, especially not me. I had to let go of the anger I had toward myself, toward my body, and toward the diaries that had shaken me to my core. I had to learn to accept that I wasn't perfect, and that was okay. The important thing was that I was trying. I was doing the work. And the results? They came slowly, but they came. My energy levels improved, my sleep got better, and the dark cloud of depression that had been hanging over me started to lift. I wasn't constantly battling with my own body anymore. I could move without pain, think without the fog, and breathe without feeling like something was crushing my chest. I started going on walks, which turned into light jogging. Eventually, I joined a gym, not to punish myself, but because I actually wanted to. My heart was stronger now, and I could feel it beating more confidently in my chest. One day, as I was walking through my apartment, I stumbled upon something that stopped me in my tracks. There, lying on the floor, was another diary. My heart skipped a beat. For a second, I was terrified that I had somehow failed, that my body was about to start yelling at me again. But when I opened the diary, I realized it wasn't like the others. It wasn't filled with criticism or complaints. Instead, it was a letter from all of my organs. It was short, simple, and to the point. That was it. Just those few words. But those words brought tears to my eyes, because for the first time in what felt like forever, I knew that I was on the right path. I wasn't fighting against my body anymore. I was taking care of it, and in return, it was taking care of me. Looking back now, it's hard to believe how far I've come. There was a time when I was ready to destroy myself out of spite, to set my body on fire just to prove a point. But now, I see things differently. I see my body as something worth fighting for, something worth nurturing. The group that had started the diary exercise reached out to me recently. They heard about what had happened, how close I had come to losing everything, and they were deeply sorry. They had never intended for the exercise to push me so far. It was meant to help participants reflect on their health, to motivate them to take care of themselves, not to drive them to the edge like it had with me. They offered me their support, and I told them about my journey, about how the exercise had ultimately saved my life, even if it had taken me down a dark path first. They asked if I would speak to others in the group, to share my story, and I agreed. Because if there's one thing I've learned from all of this, it's that we're not alone in our struggles. Our bodies are incredible, resilient things, but they need care, and they need us to listen. And sometimes, if we don't listen, they'll find ways to make us. I never expected that I'd be sitting here, writing about how my kidneys' complaints or my heart's warnings saved me. But life is strange that way. Sometimes it takes something as bizarre as a metaphorical diary to remind you of what really matters. So now I'm not just surviving, I'm living. And for that, I am deeply, deeply grateful.